Alright, what's going on, guys? Welcome everybody back to another video on the channel. Hope you guys are having a good day. So this is Thunder Tier 1. You guys are going to be seeing my first impressions and gameplay on this brand new game that PUBG has created. So I made a video 2 weeks ago letting you guys know that this was happening, and I wanted to give you a full rundown and review of it, of what I think of the game. One extremely important thing to keep in mind before we get into this is that it still is an alpha test, and a lot of things are probably going to change before it gets released to the public and then also gets released as a full and complete game. So this is not representative of the final build. However, I want to talk a little bit about what Thunder Tier 1 has to offer. So again, this is basically this top-down tac shooter. Many people who work on PUBG have developed this game, and you can see that reflected in a lot of the assets and the design just from the menus and the gameplay itself and everything. So very different to PUBG. However, before starting a game of Thunder Tier 1, you essentially select your own created class. You build your loadout before you jump into the match, and you have to carefully consider every gun or piece of equipment that you bring in, as it's going to affect your gameplay in some kind of way. So for example, if you're bringing in very heavy guns with a lot of ammo and a lot of other equipment, then it's probably going to weigh you down. You're going to be moving a little bit slower, and it's going to take you a bit longer to like mantle over objects and stuff like that. So essentially, you build your loadout kit and then you jump into a match. Now, unfortunately, I only got to play one game of the multiplayer before the servers went offline, so I really don't think I'm able to give a full, complete overview of the multiplayer aspect of it. However, the fundamentals and the core gameplay is going to be pretty much the same from the multiplayer as well as the single player. One thing that I noticed right off the bat was that the sounds in this game are absolutely incredible, to be honest. Like the sound design, whoever put that together, the team responsible for that, did an amazing job on the sound design. Every gunshot is so satisfying, and even more minuscule sounds like opening doors or like climbing over an object or even turning on a light switch. All of these things, like they just add to the overall environment, and they complement the gameplay itself really nicely. Another super cool thing about Thunder Tier 1 is the absolute attention to detail, and again, I don't think we're going to be able to really get the full scope of that until the full release of the game. However, from my experience in the single player and a little bit of the multiplayer just in the alpha alone, you can really tell the paying attention to the realism aspect of this game. There is a certain portion of gamers where like the realistic aspect is the most important factor in determining whether they enjoy a game or not, and if that's specifically what you're looking for, then at least in that regard, Thunder Tier 1 has got you covered. And if you've played PUBG in the past, then all of the controls are going to feel pretty familiar to you. You know, turning your camera left or right is essentially the same thing as leaning in PUBG, and you can, you know, tilt the camera angle, you can zoom in or out. All of the basic fundamental mechanics as far as player movement and all that is pretty much copy pasted from PUBG, so it should feel very natural on your first game. The multiplayer aspect is primarily focused on communicating with the rest of your squad and figuring out how to flank and approach enemies. You've got a plethora of resources at your disposal that you can use. You can cut through doors and fences and stuff, and all kinds of like extremely realistic tactics you can employ, and I think all of that stuff is great, and it's certainly interesting playing it through the first time around. However, despite the sheer quality of the game, you can really tell that like the new wave of PUBG developers have put this together, and it runs well, it's a lot smoother and clean, and you know, it's built how it should be, I suppose. But the one thing that I have to bring up and really ask myself as well is kind of like, does this have the legs to go the distance? And what I mean by that, again, has nothing to do with the actual mechanical quality and build of Thunder Tier 1. I don't know if this genre really has the legs to go the distance. It's incredibly niche. And I know for a fact there will be a certain portion of gamers that are looking exactly for a game like this, and you know, this is right up their alley. But I don't know if this is broadly appealing to most people. Top-down shooters and also RTS games in general have kind of just been phased out over the past couple of years, and it feels like this game would have been absolutely massive if it had been made like 5 to 7 years ago. Given enough time, I can see this game cultivating like a small but super passionate player base. That's how like a lot of these games tend to go. And I think as far as the multiplayer is concerned, at least again from what I've played, I think your fun is more or less going to be determined by the people that you're playing with and the amount of creativity and coordination that your squad can pull off. off. I don't know if this is going to be a very fun like solo game. The single player again is fine, and I think it's a pretty, you know, well-crafted experience for what it is. But I think that because the PUBG development team is behind it and how good they all are at realism, I know this isn't the point of the game, but I truly think this game could have been really interesting in first person. Again, I know there's a proportion of people that like the top-down kind of style of gameplay, but just for me personally, I really think this would have been much cooler in like a first-person perspective. And I'm aware that that completely negates the point of the game. It's supposed to be a, you know, top-down tac shooter where you essentially command your team like almost like you're playing on like a physical game board. I remember I used to play kind of a lot of Halo Wars when I was younger, and that was a few years ago, and I feel like this game could have been the realistic equivalent of Halo Wars had it come out around the same time, although as you guys know, Halo Wars is quite an old game. But I also would never really play Halo Wars in replacement of like a traditional Halo game, if that makes sense. I also don't know at this point if it's going to be a good spectator game. You know, I think PUBG's unbelievable success is in no small part due to its fact that it's an unbelievable spectator game, right? You could say PUBG got big because it was a BR, but it's like, why are BRs fun to watch? Well, you can watch somebody spawn in with nothing. You can watch the full narrative of their game play out throughout the entire match, you know, and you can sort of feel like you're involved in some way. Watching somebody play a BR and you know, observing the choices they make and everything is part of the fun, to be honest. And I feel like that was a big part of what made PUBG so successful. And the vast amount of different styles of content you can make on PUBG and still can to this day is another reason why it did well on Twitch and YouTube and everything. Thunder Tier 1, I think it's a, you know, it's a sound video game, although I don't know if it's going to be good for like, you know, content creators or I don't know if it's going to be a good viewer game and a spectator game, people that like to watch video games. You guys can let me know what you think about Thunder Tier 1 as far as like from a viewer's perspective down below in the comment section. Is this something that you would find yourself watching more often, or do you think that maybe you would just play through it once and be done with it? I would genuinely love to know your opinions. Again, when the game does come out, I recommend you at least try it out to see if it's your style of game. But for me personally, I just don't know if this is, you know, I don't know if it's really my speed. But anyways, I'm gonna let the gameplay speak for itself. I'm gonna let you guys watch the last couple minutes of this unedited, so I'm gonna shut up now. If you guys enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a like rating, subscribe if you're brand new, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Enjoy the rest of the gameplay.
Got a reload. Cover me. Empty. Cover me. Contact in sight. Cover me. Got it. Eyes on. Contact in sight. Contact in sight. Gotta reload. Empty. Cover me.
Over there.
Eyes on. Contact in sight. Enemy down. Empty. Cover me. Got it.
Die, scum.
This is Storm to all units. Be advised we have lost contact with Thunder 1. I repeat, Thunder 1 is not responding. Out.